What is up everyone, and welcome back to another video. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing a video I tend to do once every couple of seasons, and this one is the best creative maps to improve at Fortnite. This video in particular is going to be for maps in Fortnite Chapter 4 Season 2, but I'm sure it'll be relevant for a couple of seasons. Before we get into it, if you enjoy this video, then be sure to drop a like on it, and consider subscribing as well if you're new to the channel and you want to see more content just like this in the future. And of course, if you want to show some extra support, it's always really appreciated if you could use code Teckoh in the item shop. It's 100% free for you. It takes like 5 seconds to type in, and it seriously does help me out a bunch. So as always, a massive thank you to everyone who uses it. But with all that said, guys, and without further ado, let's get into today's video. So this video is going to be split into 3 different sections. We're going to start off with building and editing maps, then we're going to move on to aim, and finally we're going to move on to combat. So building and editing are basically going to be mechanics maps, aim is just going to be aim maps, and combat is basically going to be the maps that you can use to actually apply your building and editing and aim and fight against real players. So getting into this video, in our first section is going to be building and editing, and our first map is going to be Raiders Mechanics Training Map V3. I'm sure if you've watched tips and tricks videos for any amount of time, or if you've just been active in the Fortnite community, you probably know about Raiders Mechanics map by now. Overall, it's known to be one of the best mechanics maps, and for good reason. This map has a ton of useful scenarios ranging from edit crosshair training, where you can basically make your edits more accurate and efficient, piece control peak practice, where you can learn how to piece control while also not taking damage, piece control tunnels, which kind of help you build some muscle memory, and box fight practice, where you literally just box fight against an AI. And there's more stuff as well. Overall, this map is just supposed to be a very well-rounded way of improving your mechanics, and I find this especially useful for like intermediate to advanced players who really want to sharpen their mechanics instead of just learning them. This is mainly meant for people who already have pretty decent mechanics but want to get that edge up and make sure they're super consistent and super effective. Overall, guys, this is a fantastic map, and I'll go ahead and put the code up on screen. Moving on to our second map though, and we're going to be going to Flea's Editing Dictionary. Now, believe it or not, I actually used to be against the use of edit maps like these, but over the past couple of months, I've realized that this is a fantastic way for more beginner to intermediate level players to improve. What I really find useful about this map is that it helps you build muscle memory and make your editing super consistent on basically all pieces. When you're at a more beginner to intermediate level, you really want to build your foundation, and I think this is really what this map does. And this foundation carries over so well into your other techniques like your retakes, your piece control, and pretty much anything else you do. So although some people are going to argue against it and think that you want to make everything super realistic, I do think that the muscle memory you actually build by just doing these techniques over and over again and getting these edits down is going to serve you very, very well in the future. One little piece of advice I have for this map is to try and focus on the areas that are close to your skill level. There's going to be a lot of pretty advanced edits in here, and you really don't need to worry about those quadruple edits and fancy stuff if you're just trying to become a better player, because really most of those fancy techniques are never going to be used in game, and they're really just a way to flex in creative. This particular map doesn't have too much of that crazy stuff, but it's just something to be aware of. So overall, try to stick to the stuff that's near your skill level or maybe slightly above so you can improve, and this map should serve you very, very well. And getting into our third and final building and editing map, and this one is going to be Raiders Piece Control Map V3. This one is a classic piece control map that's been popular for many, many years at this point. Raiders Piece Control Map V3 has scenarios ranging from beginner to advanced, and your goal is basically to get your opponent boxed up, get a good peek, get your shot off, and preferably avoid being shot back. The concept of piece control is very, very simple. It simply involves boxing up your opponent or making it so they can't move anywhere, and then just getting a good peek and getting the kill. And that's exactly what you practice in this map. I generally recommend when you're playing this map, you try to break your practice up into segments. The way I typically like to approach it is choose a handful of scenarios each time you hop on and grind them out. Let's say, for example, 3 to 5 scenarios or so, and you run each one for 5 minutes. That'll get you familiar with the techniques and kind of help build some muscle memory. And then next time you hop on, you try a couple different ones and rinse and repeat. The way I recommend doing it is just cycling throughout the entire map. So you do 5 scenarios one day, 5 the next, 5 the next, 5 the next, and you basically keep rotating around the map over and over again. This is going to get you a really good variety and basically get you familiar with all the scenarios. And yeah, guys, that should definitely help you a lot. Alrighty, guys, so now that we've gone over our building and editing maps, next up we're going to be getting into aim maps. For the aim maps, there are really only a couple of aim maps within Fortnite that a lot of people tend to use, and they tend to be the most effective ones as well. There's pretty much 3 that can come to my mind, and there's 2 that I'm actually going to recommend in this video, so let's go ahead and do that. For the first of our 2 aim maps, we're going to be going over Skavic Aim Trainer. The Skavic Aim Trainer is created by my friend Don Wazi, and this has been pretty much the longest standing, most popular map in Fortnite, or at least the most popular aim map. This map started off super simple, and over time it's slowly been upgraded and now has a massive variety of scenarios. You have scenarios from close range to long range, all sorts of weapons, and it's overall just super well rounded. If you ever heard of the software Kovacs, that's basically an external aim trainer that a lot of people use for all sorts of FPS games, and the goal of the Skavic Aim Trainer was essentially to recreate that within Fortnite. Since Kovacs cost money and it's on PC, this is a fantastic alternative and really helps you practice within the Fortnite environment, not having to go to like an external app or anything, and it's available to everybody, not only PC. So overall, guys, this is a fantastic map and one of the most well-rounded aim maps there is. I'll go ahead and toss up the code on screen right now. Getting into our next map though, and this is actually one that I've never gone over on the channel, and this is Raider 464's aim training map. Typically the one I recommend is Raiders 1v1 Aim Trainer. This map is a little bit different and is one of Raiders' less known maps actually, but I find it to be a fantastic way to improve your aim. This map has an absolute ton of simulated aim duel scenarios which help you track real targets, as well as scenarios similar to Skavic where you kind of just shoot over and over again. But the real big benefit of this map, I think, is that contrary to his aim duel map, this doesn't require another player, which means it saves you a lot of time, and since matchmaking has a tendency to bug out, it just makes life a lot easier. You can see a lot of these scenarios on screen. As I said before, a lot of them are kind of similar to Skavic in the sense that you're just shooting targets, and some of them are aim duel based, which basically means you're fighting against a target that moves similar to a real player. So it's basically all the benefits of aim duels except in a single player map. You can see plenty of examples in the footage, and it's obvious why this is such a great map for a variety of situations. So if you're trying to get really good aim, I definitely recommend you use both the Skavic Aim Trainer and Raiders Aim Training map to make the maximum benefit. And I'll go ahead and put up the code of Raiders Aim Training map right now. Finally guys, getting into the last section of today's video, and this one is going to be our combat maps. These maps are basically going to be the ones that I find to be best for improving at fighting, whether you're trying to get better at fighting in arena or regular games or even just in creative. Basically, these are ways to improve your actual fighting ability so you can do better in game, and of course apply the stuff that you've learned from the other maps. Getting into our first one, and this map is very popular with pros, and this is the realistic 1v1 box fights map. This map by Raider464 is basically a realistic 1v1 map, except a bit different since you actually can't crank up to height limit. Since you and your opponent are basically put in a big box, you're forced to kind of box fight or at least play in a closer range, and this tends to be more accurate for competitive games where you want to try and save materials. This really helps you kind of get better at peeking, kind of get better at box fighting and all these different things, but it also does all that in a realistic environment, which makes it so appealing. This is contrary to the typical realistic 1v1 map where every fight kind of tends to turn into a build fight just because you have unlimited materials and you know that the only person you're going against is your opponent. But this map can actually help you get really good at close range, get good at saving materials, and kind of just help you improve overall as a player. You can either queue up with a friend or go into matchmaking, but either way this helps an absolute ton with close range fighting and gives you realistic loot. So I'll go ahead and put the code up on screen right now. Getting into our next combat map though, and this one is going to be one I alluded to just before, which is going to be realistic 1v1s. Realistic 1v1s are the classic map that the first one was based on, and it's exactly what it sounds like. You're put up against a random player one-on-one with realistic loot and materials, and you just fight it out until one of you dies. Realistic 1v1s are basically just meant to simulate a regular arena fight in mid-game, and they do a fantastic job of that. Just like the other map, you can either queue up with a friend or go into matchmaking, but either way it's going to help a lot. This will just help you become a better fighter overall. There's really no particular area that it focuses on since it's just a regular fight, but if you're trying to get better at fighting, you definitely need to do some realistic. So with that in mind, I'll go ahead and put the code up on screen right now. Finally guys, getting into our final map for today's video, and this one is going to be the 32-player Zone Wars map by Droya. This map is basically a simulation of the exact type of endgame you'd find in like a scrim lobby or a high-level arena. You're exposed to a ton of fights in a very short time, which means you have to learn how to end fights fast, learn how to fight under pressure, and prioritize rotations all at the same time. It's a lot to think about, but it really helps you when it comes to those real game situations where you're under a lot of pressure, especially if there's multiple players around you and you kind of need to know how to navigate the situation. This is another one of my favorite maps to improve at the game, especially if you get into a pretty solid lobby, so definitely have a crack at this one too. And this 32-player Zone Wars map, combined with some practice in the realistic 1v1 box fights and the regular realistic 1v1s, should provide some dramatic results in terms of your improvement. So with that in mind, I'll go ahead and put the code up on screen right now. Well, with all that said guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video on the best creative maps to use to improve in Fortnite Chapter 4 Season 2. Overall, by doing a combination of these 8 maps, you should find yourself improving dramatically in terms of your mechanics, your aim, and your fighting ability. If you found this video helpful, then be sure to drop a like on it, subscribe if you're new to the channel and you want to see more, and of course guys, it's always really appreciated if you could use code Teckoh in the item shop. It's 100% free for you, it takes like 5 seconds to type, and it seriously does help me out a ton, so as always, a massive thank you to everyone who uses it. And finally guys, let me know down in the comments what you actually want to see next on the channel. I know I did take quite a significant break this season, and this is my first video in like a month, but I'm back on the grind now guys. I had some real life stuff that I had to focus on, but now I'm right back on it, so I'll be posting consistently again, and I want to know what you guys want to see. But with all that said guys, thank you all so much for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it and you find these creative maps helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.